Welcome to Using Excel, using data validation to ensure your information meets your needs. Data validation is an Excel tool that allows you to limit what data is input to a cell. You can set value limits with an upper and lower values. You can set a cell to only accept dates or times, or even create a list from which your users can select a preset entry. The validation tools are found on the Data tab of the Excel ribbon. So to set up a basic data validation rule, first of all, select your cell. So here's a little set of data being collected. I'm selecting cell I2. Okay, just left click to select the cell. Left click on the Data tab of the ribbon. That changes to the Data menu. I'm going to left click on the Data Validation menu. And here are my options. At the moment, any value is permitted in this cell. I'm going to select this drop-down arrow, choose whole numbers only. I can set that they're between, not between, equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to rules. I'm keeping it simple and selecting between. My minimum value will be 150. Left click to select maximum and type in this case 2500 as my maximum value. Notice you've got cell pickers, so you can actually use an existing cell on your spreadsheet or a named cell to set the minimum and maximum ranges for this validation. Now I'm just going to left click on the OK button, and my rule is set for this one cell. So if you'll notice I'll just put in 149 and I get an error message because that is not valid. It is lower than 150. I will retry. Okay, we will instead have 2501. Once again, that value exceeds the validated rule, so I'll retry and we'll have 1503, and that's fine. That value is perfectly acceptable. And that's how you set up a basic validation rule. So you created a validation rule in cell I2 in this example, and we can only have values between 150 and 2500. And that seems to be working just fine. If I go over the expected values, I have my warning, so that's all very well and it works. However, you'll notice these other cells in this column I can do what I like with. They don't currently have any validation rules preventing the entry of reduced values. So rather than recreate those rules on each individual cell, we are going to copy and paste that cell's validation rule to the other cells. You start by selecting the cell that has the validation rule. In this example, cell I2. In the top left of the menu of the Home tab, I'm selecting Copy. You can also use Ctrl+C on a keyboard or right-click Copy with the mouse. The next step, you're going to need the on-screen tab and mouse option. It's just the easiest way to do this. Select and highlight the cells that you want to paste the validation rule into. Do nothing else. On the Home tab of the ribbon, under the Paste menu with this drop-down arrow, left click. Right at the bottom of the options we have Paste Special. So left click, Paste Special. We now have a whole range of different paste tools that we can apply. We will select, left click the radio button for validation. Left click OK. And our validation rule is now applied to these other cells. To test that, let's press Escape on the keyboard, just remove the focus, the marching ants. Now you see we have 149 there, which under our existing rule would not be allowed. However, that value is input to the cell before we applied the rule. If I were to now write 149 in a cell, I am refused permission to enter it there. This one, if I type 149 now, will do exactly the same. As long as the value is there before the rule, we can keep it, but any value entered after the rule that exceeds our rule, we cannot enter into that cell. So we've now pasted that rule into all the other cells. That's how you do that. We can be a bit more friendly to our users by creating an input message on these validated cells. So here I am selecting again I2, the cell we have a validation rule applied to. Left click the data tab of the ribbon, left click data validation, and we're offered the options for an input message. Left click the tab, input message. It may need a title, values permitted, and my message will be, please enter a value between 150 and 2500 and press OK. So you'll now notice that when the cell, I've got a capital where I didn't want it, let's ignore that for the minute. When this cell is selected, let's just move that slightly over, then the message appears, please enter a value. And now it's not applied to the other cells, we'd have to do our copy paste validation again, and I may do it at the end just as a repeat exercise, but right for now it's only showing that message on our one cell, values that are permitted. So as soon as the user selects the cell, they are automatically invited to enter the correct value for your tidy spreadsheet. As well as being able to limit the values that users can place into cells, you can also give them this information. We've already advised them what values we're expecting, but when they do that wrong and they enter values we don't want, we can have error messages appear that give further advice to our users. Okay, so let's put some of those messages in here. I've selected the cell with the validation rule that I wish to do edit or change. Then I'm going to left click the data tab on the ribbon, and I'm going to left click the data validation rule. I'm also going to select, if it hadn't already been open, the error alert tab. So this will show an error alert when the invalid data is entered. So anything that doesn't match this rule will set off the error alert. Currently it's in the style of stop. With a stop, data can't progress to the rest of the spreadsheet as long as the rule is not met. If you just want to give advice, you can use warning or information settings, in which case the user, even though they've made a mistake, can continue to the rest of the spreadsheet. Therefore, I advise you to leave the stop setting in place. So I'm going to replace the title with please try again, and I'll write in here, please enter values from 150 to 2500 only. Okay, let's correct that. From, and press OK, and the value is now, that rule is now edited, so we can have 149. No, we can't. Retry. Okay, can we have 2501? No, we can't. So you're able to apply not just this holding message that says this is what we want. You can also leave a message that says, actually, you still haven't given us what we want, and allow your users another attempt to get it right. We can use data validation to allow our users to only input data that meets a particular list, or even to select values from that list. To start, highlight a cell, left click on the data tab of the ribbon, left click on data validation, and on the settings tab we're going to choose, instead of any value, list. You then got to say where the list is. Okay, now you could use a named range, or a range address, and we're going to use the cell picker to choose a range I've already created. So I'm just going to left click on that cell picker red arrow tool there. Now sheet 2 of this particular spreadsheet has a list with a range H2 to H9, and I'll simply highlight, left click, drag, release, okay, the H2 to H9 set. Notice here that the address actually includes the sheet name, sheet 2 with an exclamation mark indicating that it is a worksheet, and the address H2 to H9, the range, is also an absolute address. These dollar symbols mean that the address does not change. I'm just going to left click the selector to confirm my choices. There we are, H2 to H9, then left click on OK. And on my name page, this cell, when selected, has the drop down list. Left click and I can enter 4, or I can choose 15, or I can choose 2. Can I type in anything? Yeah, I can have 7 because it's in the list. I can't have 6 because that value does not exist in that list. Okay, so just by repeating that process, you can create a drop down list that your users can either type exactly what exists in the list, or from the drop down select a value to enter into that cell. It's a very useful tool. So you've created your spreadsheet with a number of validation rules applied. In this column we have, for example, a drop down list from which users may select values, or they can type values as long as those values exist on the list and they're excluded from non-listed values. And on the other side we have cells that when selected will show you what values are expected, and if you get the values wrong you get another message telling you what they actually want, and you get to retry until you get correct values. So this has all worked very well for us, but now we decided we don't need these rules anymore, and perhaps we want to start with a whole clean set of rules, or we just want to abandon them as we've trained all our users up and they no longer need this hand holding. All we do, left click and select those cells that have the validation rule, left click on the data tab, left click on data validation, and press clear all. You can also use the selector box here to apply the changes to all the cells with the same setting. So every cell on that worksheet that has the same rules applied to their data validation will be cleared. If you remove it, it's only those that you've selected that are cleared. So I'm going to left click clear all and press OK. And now those rules no longer apply, and any values may be entered into those cells. The same here, left click, highlight the cells that have a validation rule, left click for data validation, checkbox if you wish to apply it to the entire worksheet, left click clear all, left click OK, and we are now able to edit those cells to create any values we like. The list no longer applies.